At some point, self-care became less like care and more like an unpaid internship with your nervous system. Track your sleep, optimize your protein, journal, stretch, meditate, hydrate, regulate, get sunlight in your eyeballs, walk 10,000 steps, heal your inner child, breathe through one nostril while forgiving your ancestors. And individually, a lot of these things are actually useful. I want to be clear, I'm not anti-self-care. As a certified counselor working in the psychotherapy-informed space, I talk with a lot of people around regulation, routines, emotional awareness, burnout, and nervous system care. I use these tools in my own life. I meditate, I journal, I believe in the science and the practice, but I also know how easy good tools can become another way to judge yourself and feel like another thing you are failing at. And this is where self-care gets so weird, because the thing that was meant to soften your life starts sounding suspiciously like a performance review. Wellnessmaxxing has become a hot trend, and this video is about the fatigue that comes along with it. Not, I hate self-care, not throw your journal into the ocean and live exclusively on iced coffee and emotional avoidance. Wellness fatigue is what happens when the pursuit of feeling better becomes another source of pressure. You are not just tired, you are tired of having to optimize the tiredness. You are not just stressed, you are stressed about whether you are managing your stress correctly. You do not just miss a workout, you have a full internal legal proceeding about your character. And this is especially intense for thoughtful, high-functioning, self-aware people, because we can turn absolutely anything into homework. Meditation becomes homework. Rest becomes homework. Healing becomes homework. Even joy becomes a KPI, which is a deeply cursed sentence. And I say this as someone who works in the psychotherapy-informed space. Sometimes knowing more does not make you more relaxed. Sometimes knowing more gives your inner critic better vocabulary, because then it's not just, oh, I didn't meditate today. It becomes interesting. So I am aware of nervous system regulation, emotional processing, behavioral patterns, and the benefits of consistent reflective practice. And yet, here I am, munching on toast aggressively while scrolling. Which is not a compassion. This is a TED Talk from the most annoying part of your brain. So I've had to remind myself repeatedly that the point of these practices is not just to become a perfectly optimized person. The point is to come back to myself, to feel, to notice, to create enough space that I can meet the day as a human being and not as a mildly haunted productivity machine. Morning and evening matter, but not magically. I do really value morning and evening, not in a 5 a.m. millionaire monk routine way, more in a these are transition points and transition points matter type of way. The first part of the morning is a sensitive window. Your body is shifting from sleep into wakefulness. Cortisol naturally rises after waking. Your mind is coming online. Your attention is still quite impressionable. So yes, I care about that time. I try to give myself space before the world barges in wearing shoes. Sometimes that means meditation, sometimes journaling. Sometimes it's listening to a meditation while I have a coffee because I'm spiritual, but also not interested in pretending caffeine is not a part of my personality. And sometimes it's not just grabbing my phone immediately and letting the entire internet climb into bed with me. This counts. It matters, not because I did the perfect routine, but because I gave myself a chance to arrive. This is the distinction I want to sit with. There is self-care that creates contact with yourself, and there is self-care that creates control over yourself. They can look almost identical from the outside. Two people can both be journaling. One person is gently asking, what's going on for me? The other person is conducting a hostile audit of their personality. Two people can both be exercising. One is moving because their body needs circulation, strength, expression, discharge. The other is punishing themselves for being a person who ate pasta. Same behavior, very different relationship. And this relationship matters because if your wellness routine is built on self-disgust, the routine might look healthy, but the emotional climate is still very harsh. You can still be doing all the right things while relating to yourself like a difficult project. This is where I notice it with food, exercise, and routines. When I get too strict with myself, when I decide I'm going to cut everything out, exercise perfectly, meditate every day, journal beautifully, sleep like a Scandinavian wellness retreat, something in me eventually rebels. And not in a cute way, more in a, oh, we are doing a tyranny now, fantastic, let's burn the village. Then I do the opposite. I eat in a way that doesn't feel good. I stop moving. I avoid the journal. I start speaking to myself horribly, and I mean horribly. And then suddenly the missed routine is not just a missed routine. It becomes evidence. See, you can't stick to anything. You should know better. You are falling behind. And then the shame snowball starts rolling downhill, collecting every unrelated failure from the last 15 years. And this is why the all or nothing thinking is so sneaky. It pretends to be disciplined, but often it destroys consistency. Because the moment the plan is not perfect, the whole thing feels ruined, and then we do nothing. Not because we don't care, but because the standard became so brittle that reality could not touch it without breaking it. So the reframe I like is, I have a toolbox and not a prison sentence. A toolbox. Meditation is a tool, journaling is a tool, movement is a tool, breath work is a tool, a walk is a tool, a proper meal is a tool, a shower, calling someone back is a tool. Sitting outside for 5 minutes and remembering I'm not a head attached to my calendar is a tool. And the point of the toolbox is not to use every tool every day. If you are hanging a picture, you don't need a chainsaw. If you are emotionally fragile at 7:12 a.m., you might not need a 45-minute shutterwork escalation. You might need a coffee, sunlight, and one honest sentence in a notebook. The mature skill is not doing everything. The mature skill is noticing what is needed. So my version of a morning practice is less rigid now. I try to protect that first window where I'm most sensitive. Some mornings I meditate properly. Some mornings I journal. Some mornings I listen to something grounding while having a coffee. Some mornings I look in the mirror and say something like, I am safe, I am worthy, I am allowed to take up space today, I am abundant, I am beautiful. And yes, part of me still feels a bit ridiculous saying these things sometimes, but I would rather feel slightly ridiculous speaking kindly to myself than feel very sophisticated while emotionally bullying myself before breakfast. The point is to interrupt the old tone that says not enough, do more, fix yourself, hurry up. Sometimes the most therapeutic thing is not a complicated intervention. Sometimes it's catching the first full sentence of the day and deciding not to build the whole mood around it. And then the evening matters too. Again, not perfectly. I don't always have a candle-lit, wind-down routine with herbal tea and a face that suggests inner peace. Sometimes the evening is dishes, emails, forgetting why I walked into a room, and negotiating with myself about bedtime like a toddler with a mortgage. But I do try to give myself some kind of landing, a little space to ask, what did I carry today? What needs to be put down? And is there anything I need to repair? Is there anything I need to stop rehearsing? Evening routines do not need to be elaborate. Sometimes it's writing 3 lines. Sometimes it's stretching for 4 minutes. Sometimes it's putting the phone away slightly earlier. Sometimes it's saying, that was a lot, and letting it be true, because the nervous system does not always need a solution. Sometimes it needs acknowledgement. And this is the bigger point. Life is not about becoming the most optimized version of yourself. I know that it's not very algorithmic friendly, but life isn't a spreadsheet. It's not a streak. It's not a morning routine competition judged by people with matching containers in their fridge. Life is about feeling whole enough to be here, feeling connected to yourself, feeling connected to other people, feeling connected to your environment, being able to enjoy a coffee without turning it into a productivity supplement, being able to move your body without making it an apology, being able to rest without needing to deserve it first, being able to have a bad day without declaring your entire healing journey bankrupt. That is wellness to me, not the constant upgrading of the self, the returning to the self. And honestly, this is also where connection comes in, because when wellness becomes too individualized, too private, too optimized, we can forget that humans are not meant to regulate entirely alone. You can have the journal, the meditation app, the supplements, the morning light, the breath work, and still need people, still need laughter, still need someone to sit with you in the messy middle, still need a life that is not just well managed, but actually lived. And this is something I want to talk about more in my next video, how independence can quietly become isolation, and why connection is not a luxury add-on to mental health. It's a part of the architecture. So if your self-care started to feel like another thing you are failing at, maybe the answer is not to try harder. Maybe the answer is to soften the contract. Use a tool that fits, let some days be simple, let care feel like care again. And please, for the love of your nervous system, you don't have to breathe through one nostril while forgiving your ancestors before you're allowed to be okay.